DBE fam, welcome back to the show. I've got markers in my hand, which means it is a whiteboard episode. So if you're not following over on YouTube, go ahead and find us on YouTube at Jessica DeRose. Take a peek because I'm going to pull the whiteboard out in a moment in today's episode, and I'm going to be drawing something out for you. And for me, I love visuals, so you're probably going to want to see it. If you're listening on the podcast right now on something like Spotify or the podcast app on Apple or wherever that would be, then feel free to also go to the YouTube and check it out. We have tons of episodes there. All right, let's get into the show. Here's the deal. This is a really common question, and this came up because something actually came up recently in the business. Something always comes up. Not that something always comes up, but things are always happening behind the scenes that you might not know about. So the topic of today's episode is sort of how do you handle, and the question came to me, how do I specifically handle, that's what I'm sharing, how do you handle negative feedback? How do you handle if somebody quits your team? How do you handle it if you have to fire someone? How do you handle a difficult conversation that you have to have with someone? But most importantly, how do you handle negative feedback that might come in from a client? We've all maybe experienced that email that comes in that sort of makes your heart just drop into your stomach, or a comment or a DM on social media, even if it's from not a client. I'm not just talking about internet trolls, because that's one thing, right? Like internet trolls is kind of over here. We could talk about that. What I'm going to talk about today will help with that as well. But I'm talking about more of an interactive, there is a personal relationship happening. It's not just a keyboard warrior out there trying to get you, but it's someone that you actually have a relationship with. So the question came to me because clients of mine were struggling. One of my clients was struggling with sort of negative feedback from a client. Also, we were talking about this because in our signature program, E+mpower, we send out surveys along the way. So a week into the program, 6 weeks into the program, 12 weeks into the program, we send out surveys. And we always ask our clients to be very truthful, be kind, but be clear, right? Compassionate. Tell us how you feel, tell us what we can make better. But also remember, like, there are humans, I am one of them on the other side of the screen that is reading everything that you're writing. So just say it in a kind way. We also recently had an experience where I was having a difficult conversation with someone in the business. And this happens a lot. That's part of leadership. That's part of having a team. And so I want to break down for you a couple different things. So number one, it's just, we've talked about this a lot. I actually just talked about this on a recent episode as well. We humans like to make meaning out of everything, right? And so if we don't like something, if we don't understand something, if we want something to change, we start to create stories in our head. We create meaning in our head. And I've given so many examples of this in the past, like when someone doesn't text you back and you think that all of a sudden, they got picked up by an alien or whatever, and it's like, no, their phone just died, right? It's just not that big of a deal. I've shared stories of how I made meaning for 30 years, that my artwork wasn't good enough, therefore I wasn't good enough, therefore I wasn't valuable, and I didn't think that I was worthy, and I didn't think that I necessarily loved myself. I was loved by my parents, but I didn't love myself because I didn't feel valuable or worthy. Come to find out, the only reason my parents didn't hang the artwork on my refrigerator as a kid was because it wasn't magnetic. Also because my mom didn't want stuff all over the house. That's just how our house was. It was very clean, very modern. But I carried that story with me that I created for many years. So if you are in a difficult conversation, working through communication, having to fire someone, someone's quitting, someone is a client having a negative experience, and they are bringing it to you, first and foremost, don't make it mean anything about you, okay? And with that, there's something that you're gonna do, and this is where I'm gonna grab my little marker board here, my little whiteboard. I hope this is gonna work out for us. So go ahead and get that YouTube up. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing that you wanna do here is what's called triangulate the issue. So let's go with a team member right now, instead of a client sort of complaining or an unhappy client. So with a team member, what you want to do is you want to triangulate the issue. So you're going to make a triangle here. And on one side of the triangle, let's go left side, it's you. So here's Jess. And on the other side of the triangle, it's your team member. So we're going to call your team member X. So this is the distance between myself and X, my team member. Now let's say the project that was supposed to get done that didn't get done was that an email was supposed to get sent out at a particular time on a particular day to a particular group of people segmented in our email list. And for whatever reason, it didn't go out. So the issue here is about an email not going out, all right? With that, I could come directly at my team member and he or she could come back to me and we can sort of have an argument over why this didn't get done. And we can start blaming each other and making assumptions that you didn't make it a priority, or you didn't give me an appropriate deadline, or I didn't even know what the deadline was, or I didn't think that this was an important task. Like, why was I even supposed to do this? Or it didn't matter. Nobody reads the emails anyway, right? Whatever this could be. If we start doing the back and forth game of creating scenarios, creating stories, making assumptions, then ultimately we start to sort of attack one another's character. And we all do this. Humans do this by accident. We do this all the time in relationships, in friendships, in parenting. We can do this with clients. We can do this with team members. And so instead, what you want to do is you want to triangulate the problem. Okay, I should have drawn the triangle now. So this is the distance between us. It's like, this thing didn't happen and I'm blaming you and I'm blaming you. What we want to do though is we want to build those vertical walls up on the top of the triangle. And up at the top, we want to actually take the issue that we have and we want to stick the issue at the top. So literally imagine, if you're not on YouTube, that the issue is floating above our heads in the center between us, just like a triangle would be. So now the issue itself is that the email didn't go out. That's the issue. So I can say to this person on my team, hey, X, right? I noticed that this email didn't go out. I was wondering if there's a reason it didn't go out, why? And if there was something that I could have done better to make sure that it went out on time, or if I didn't make myself clear, I just want to have an open conversation about it. And you can even say, I'm not attacking you as a person. I'm not mad at you. I'm not even disappointed. I just want to get to the root of the problem, because ultimately our job here is to solve the problem, whether it's a team member or again, a client or just someone you're in a relationship with. So how do we solve the problem, right? Now what you want to do when you open that conversation up is on the sides of the triangle, we've got the left side and the right side. On one side of the triangle, we're going to list out all of the facts. So what are the facts that actually happened? And on the right side of the triangle, the fiction. So what are the stories that we are both telling ourselves about why it didn't happen? And so now that we've removed the issue from it either being mine or him or hers, it's not about us, it's up here, it's floating in the ether, it just happened, that is true, right? Let's list out the facts. So in this example, the fact is the email didn't go out. So the email didn't go out. The fact is that the deadline was missed. The fact is that I wasn't notified. The fact is the other person, X, maybe misunderstood. Maybe the fact for that person is that they didn't see it as a priority, right? Whatever it would be, we're going to ask each other sort of, what are the facts on my side? What are the facts on your side? And then the fiction are the stories that we're telling ourselves. And we want to be open and honest with each other when we're communicating here. And this could be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's a good thing because it's helping you grow and ultimately going to help you get to the solve, which is going to be how do we fix the problem. So now I'm going to give all of my fictions and then person X is going to give their fictions as well. So I would say things like, well, the email not going out, I got to be honest, it made me feel like I wasn't respected as a leader. I also felt that you didn't care. I felt that you weren't listening on our meeting. I felt that, and these are stories that I'm telling myself. I don't know if this person was actually listening or not, but I've created a story that because the email didn't go out, that person must not have been listening. Now, person X is going to give all of their reasons as well. So person X is going to say things like, well, I was really overwhelmed. I had too much on my plate and I was scared to come talk to you about it. Person X might say the email didn't go out because I actually had a family emergency, right? So that's the story, but it's also kind of a fact as well. So what we're doing here is we're removing ourselves from the issue. We're making the issue fly high above us. It's its own thing. We've triangulated it. We've mapped out all of the facts that are true about what happened and all of the fictions that are not true, but they're stories that we've created and told ourselves. Once we have this all laid out, then we can come to an agreement. We can come to a solve, as we like to call it in our company, and we can come to ultimately a fix of, okay, now that we know the facts, now that we know the fiction, nothing has changed. The email still didn't go out. So what are we going to do now to make it go out? What are we going to do in the future to make sure it doesn't happen again? And how are we going to put a bow on the conversation to make sure that both of us feel seen, heard, understood, respected, and valued? So this idea of triangulating, that was an example that I'm giving you for a team member, but the same thing could go if you're having a difficult conversation with a client, right? And if you aren't having a conversation, but maybe you received an email and they don't want to talk to you, or they didn't respond back to you, or they asked for their money back, or they want to drop out of your program. Again, don't make it mean anything about you. Collect as much of the fact and as much as the fiction as you can from them, as well as from yourself. And then here's the hard part for a lot of us. Remove your ego. Where maybe did you go wrong? Where could you make changes in the future? Where might you maybe owe an apology, or maybe just some sort of an explanation? I recently had something come up with clients where I had said something through a text, like writing, and because you can't catch tone in a text and I didn't use an emoji, the client had taken it as like more of an authoritative stance, where I was writing it as a playful stance. And so then it sort of made them feel less than, which of course was not my intention. And so I immediately rectified it with a personal message, a personal voice message to that person, as well as a live over in the group, sort of explaining, I'm really sorry. That was not my intention. I've learned from this and I should have used an emoji. And also, here's what I'm seeing. There's also a gap here. Here's an opportunity for you, the clients, to also learn and grow. And so I sort of laid it out and I took responsibility on my end. I also opened an opportunity, because we are all mirrors for one another. And so what we see in others, we see in ourselves, which is where a lot of times envy comes from, and jealousy, because I see in you what I believe to be true in me. I see in you what I know is possible for me, but maybe I don't have it yet. Maybe I'm not there yet. And so I was a mirror for all of the clients to say, awesome, where in your life, in your business, have you maybe done the same thing? And let me show you how I'm going to approach this with leadership. Let me show you how I'm going to navigate this situation. Take what you want, leave the rest. But also, what are you going to do in your life and your business? And how would you approach something like this? And let's have an open dialogue. You always want to make sure that you're seeing it from their eyes, especially, again, it's not so much about a hater or like a troll on the internet, but if a client is telling you something or a team member is telling you something, you don't get to tell them that how they feel is incorrect. That is not true. It cannot be true. You can't tell someone how to feel. You can't tell them that how they feel is wrong, right? So how can you take a step back, take a step away, take a deep breath, take 3 deep breaths, sleep on it, give yourself 24 hours, come out of your heightened central nervous system state of defense, where you're fight, flight, or freeze, get to a calm place, and really put yourself in their shoes. As much as you might not like what you see or hear, as much as your ego might get in the way, you might get defensive. No, oh my God, this is awful. I made this mistake, or my program did this or that or whatever. How do they feel? Can you see, hear, and understand where they're coming from? Can you put yourself in their shoes? And for a lot of us, that does require time away. Step away from the business. Literally go outside, go for a walk, sleep on it for a night or two. Go vent to a loved one that you trust, but like after you're done venting, come back to silence, journal on it, sit with it, meditate. Why are they saying something like that? We can't just blame other people or blame their feeling. We shouldn't do that, at least. So where can you sort of take personal responsibility? And when you do, if you are going to apologize or sort of try to rectify the situation or triangulate the situation and have a conversation with them, listen. We're so quick to apologize and then move on, or apologize and then defend. We forget the most important part is listening. So often people just want to be heard, especially clients who maybe are having an off experience, who are disappointed, whose expectations weren't met, who are frustrated, who are coming up against self-doubt and limiting beliefs. They're going through their own process. And so what they're ultimately most likely needing and wanting is for you to listen, to hear them out, and maybe not even respond at all. Get into the habit of practicing listening before you respond. Can you be solution-oriented? This is always where I come to. It's like, okay, I can clean up the mess, I can fix the problem, I can take responsibility, I can listen, but at the end of the day, I don't want it to happen again. So how can I be solution-oriented? And sometimes that's a conversation with the person. And I get that it might feel uncomfortable, especially if it's a client. It happens with us with team members. It's like, okay, great. We've moved on. We did the triangulation. We've removed our egos. This is not a personal attack. Now let's get to a solution so that it doesn't happen again in the future. What are the different things that we have to look at? What are the different conversations we might need to have? What are new things we might need to implement in the business? It's not about adding more to your plate. This is the idea that structure creates freedom. And so what little nuanced markers and check markers and things can we do so that things like this don't happen in the future? And the last thing I said, and I said it before too, it's like this idea of taking personal responsibility. It doesn't have to always be in the form of an apology. It might not always make sense for it to be, but taking personal responsibility, like, wow, I actually didn't see that. I was blind to that. I had no idea that that was going to happen. I didn't know the domino effect, the ripple that was going to happen. I didn't realize this one action was going to turn into that one result. This one cause was going to have this one effect. Let me take personal responsibility. I missed the mark. I went too fast. I should have learned that other thing first. I should have had a contract in place. I should have thought about a payment plan. I should have realized, I should have seen through the lens of something, and doing that without shame, blame, or guilt. We don't want to shame spiral ourselves, but the personal responsibility is just, awareness, interesting. That happened. I wonder why. What was I distracted with? What was I busy with? What was I trying to hide behind? The more you can do this, the faster you can go through processes like this of having the awareness to take personal responsibility, to remove your ego, to not make it mean anything about you, to offer apologies when they're appropriate, to listen to other people, to take the feedback and make tweaks moving forward. The faster you're just going to grow as a human. Like business aside, money aside, clients aside, your life will get infinitely better. Your relationships will get infinitely better. Your communication will get better. Stronger. It'll get easier. It won't be as scary. Your armpits won't sweat as much. I can tell you this from experience. And my hope for you is that that is true. My hope for you is that you can take from this and implement moving forward. So again, check out the YouTube if you haven't yet, because I did draw on the whiteboard. It's not perfect, but it's there. Take a break, move away from the situation, just like you would if you were in a fight with your loved one or a child, right? Sometimes we have to just hide in the bathroom and take a deep breath, get back to center. Give yourself the space to do that. It can hurt really bad. It can sting so bad when you get a negative piece of feedback. But what I would say to you if you were a client and you asked me how to navigate that, what should you do? You're in a tough spot, this really hurt. My first response to you would be congratulations. And I know that sounds really weird, but congrats, it's going to be your first. Maybe not your first of many. I hope it doesn't happen all the time, but it's your first. You did it. You're in a place in your business where it happened. You're scaling your team. You're scaling your clients. There are going to be cracks. And when you can find gratitude for the cracks, then you can patch them faster. I want to know about the holes in the bucket. Otherwise, the water's going to keep leaking out. And every time you have one of these uncomfortable, difficult conversations, negative pieces of feedback, a survey that you don't love, somebody complaining about your program, that is just a flashlight being shined on a crack that you didn't see. That is literally the best gift that you can ever have for your business and for your communication and relationships moving forward. Be excited about the flashlight. Go patch that crack up. Grab that flashlight and move on to the next. That's it. It's simple, not easy. All right, friends, if you love this episode, it was helpful, let me know. Comment, let us know on YouTube. Make sure you're following along, subscribe. We are now dropping multiple podcasts per week. We used to do 2, now we're doing usually 3. We're really putting out lots of juice, lots of content, lots of good stuff, and so many different free trainings. I hope you are a part of our text family. I hope you're following us on social media. Come say hi in the DMs. I am Jessica DeRose, and as always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.